format documentary on the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and Ford's Theater and the Peterson House across the street. Some of you have been there, I know. Some of you haven't. You're going to love this history. Here's Melissa and I at the grave of President John F. Kennedy. His wife Jackie is buried there. And then on either side of them, a daughter that passed away, and then, of course, a son who passed away just a few hours after being born, a few days. The eternal flame is right behind us. So we did that. We also visited the that's at Arlington National Cemetery, obviously. Here we are at the grave. No, I'm wearing tennis shoes. We did so much walking. I was wearing boots until that last day. I'm like, I can't do this. My dogs were barking. Here we are in front of the burial site, the tomb, the grave of Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s father, the brother of President Kennedy, obviously. Let's see, what else can I show you? We'll be bringing you so much footage. There at the top of the hill was Lee's mansion. Actually, it belonged to his mother-in-law and father-in-law. Robert E. Lee, General Robert E. Lee, belonged to his mother-in-law and his father-in-law. And they're buried on the property because they died before the Civil War. We went into the room. We were able to film extensively in the mansion, the Lee Mansion, or the Arlington House, as it's called. Because it started to rain, and that was to our benefit, people left. We went in the Lee Mansion, made friends with the Park Service guy. He talked to us, told us all kinds of great stuff. And we filmed with just as long as we wanted in all the different rooms. We're going to show you so many cool things, including Robert E. Lee's Bible. Here's another guy that's been lied about a lot, Robert E. Lee. This guy's been lied about a lot. A lot. We're going to do a long format documentary on him, Robert E. Lee. How you doing, Delta? How you doing, Dolly? Dolly's got a birthday coming up Friday. She'll be a year old. She did so good on the trip, by the way. We weren't sure how she would do. We thought, oh, she's got a lot of energy. Will she behave herself? She spent a lot of time in her kennel on the motor coach. We'd leave her on the motor coach with the driver, along with the other two dogs. She did really, really well, but I think she's glad to be back home. What other pictures do I got to show you? Ooh, here we are, Melissa and Logan and I, in front of the Discovery Space Shuttle. This space shuttle did 39 missions, more than any other orbiter. 150 million miles it traveled. I think it started off in 84. Last mission was in 2011. I'm going off the top of my head here. I think I'm pretty right. We got to film all around this thing, walking under the wings there. There's barriers. We didn't cross them, but those wings stick out. The back end, this thing is so big. But the way that they have this set up at the Air and Space Museum outside of D.C. and near the Dulles Airport is you can actually get up on different levels and then be over top of it. Logan had a really nice cinema camera. I had a camera. We filmed so much footage of this. I'm going to make this into a short documentary about the space shuttles, and particularly this one, the Discovery, Space Shuttle Discovery. You cannot believe how big this thing is until you're there. We have so many airplanes that we filmed there, historic airplanes. We have so many short format documentaries we're going to bring you. We're getting started this week, by the way. And here's Melissa out front of the U.S. Capitol. We're standing outside I think we're outside the Cannon building, Cannon House office building right there. Let's see, what else do we got? I feel like I'm doing a family slideshow here. Here's a panoramic view. We went to a press conference being held by Ann Vandersteel, Ivan Raiklan, Maureen Steele, outside the DOJ about their new organization they're starting, dealing particularly with the trafficking of children through our social services like CPS. So there she is in front of the DOJ, and literally right across the street is the J. Edgar Hoover building, also known as the FBI building. By the way, if you look, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you look right there, this is the 7th floor. This is where, you know, your big FBI people work that run the agency. But it's really interesting. Reason I point that out is because it's so easy to see this building, particularly this part of it, and then use that as a landmarker. Right 2 doors down the street from that right there is Ford's Theater. 2 doors down the street is Ford's Theater. So we spent, like I said, quite a bit of time there. Let's see. Here is Aaron and I at the U.S. Capitol. We didn't know we were going to see Aaron, but his flights got messed up back to Israel. So he was able to join us in the Howse Tannen building for an interview. That's obviously the U.S. Capitol right behind us. That's not a stage. That's the real U.S. Capitol right behind us. But we didn't expect to see him there. That worked out great. So he grabbed a cab and came over. Here we are in front of Air Force One, the Air Force One of John F. Kennedy, the one that he took to Dallas and then flew his body back home. We filmed all around this thing with 2 cameras and then on board. And I have so many things to bring you about this Air Force One and that day in audio that's come out in the last few years from the Situation Room in the White House, talking to the pilot of Air Force One and telling him what had just happened to President Kennedy. I stood right where LBJ was sworn in with Jackie Kennedy standing next to him. Any of you have the chance to go to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, should take this in. It's there. Again, we filmed so much there in Dayton, Ohio. We filmed the Boxcar. The Boxcar, that's the plane, one of the planes that dropped one of the bombs on Japan. Then when we got to D.C., went to the Dulles Air and Space, we filmed the Enola Gay. So we'll be bringing you all of that history. There's so much history here. We had a great time. Oh, here's another great shot of us in front of the Discovery, just showing you how big it is. And let's see, I think that's it, is it? Yep, that's it. All right. Now, again, before we go to our first guest, I want to take you over here to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I have to tell you, last week, we didn't do a lot of product promotion. We just didn't have time on the shows. So, folks, I need you to pay attention real quick. I need you to go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, and subscribe to these great products. We took these with us to DC. We took Bella Grace. We took our Numi. We took Gatatana. It's all there. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. WorldviewTube. There's the Squish for Life. That's the Gatatana. That's the glutathione. The glutathione to detox your cells. Some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. We switched with this all week, trying to stay well. Didn't want to get sick out there and waste time, miss out on an opportunity, or not feel good and enjoy it. So we were doing the same thing we always do, taking our Numi, our swishforlife.com. We were taking our Gatatana. There it is. Dolly got her Gatatana on her food this morning. We are taking our Bella Grace. It's all there. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Please, folks, these are great products with clinical trials behind them. It's not a joke. It works. And so many of you have a subscription to these products, and you keep your subscription. Why? Because they work. Like they work for us, they work for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep your subscriptions. So please go there now, get a subscription, tell your family and friends about them. We're only limited by our budgets. We can do more. We want to do more. We're planning right now to go back to the DC area, report from the White House, from Capitol Hill, but we're planning on also taking with us Bill Federer at the middle of September and filming in Williamsburg, in the chapel, the church in Richmond, Virginia, where Patrick Henry gave his famous speech. We have so much we can film and do and bring you great historical programming, free. We got to pay for it. And this is one way you can do it. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Great products with clinical trials behind them that work. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to be joined here in just one second by Dr. Andy Woods and Annie Cyrus. Last week, when we were up on Capitol Hill interviewing members on the House side, right outside the Rotunda area, about, 15 steps, was what they've now labeled the Nancy Pelosi caucus room. And all week long when we were up there, various groups, I guess, can reserve that room and use it. And there was a Jewish group, a large Jewish group, that was using it. In fact, in the pictures you'll see in the video we're about to play, you'll see the name of the Jewish group. And then all of a sudden comes up in there some pro-Palestinian folks wearing their keffiyehs, the terrorist neckerchief, if you will, scarf, holding signs. One of the guys wearing a shirt, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free." That to me sounds like genocide. Just get rid of all the Jews. And I'm going to show you the video because I took a video and some pictures. And they had the audacity to come up in there where these Jewish folks were having their meeting, which caused me to be able to meet a few of them, including a rabbi from Beverly Hills. And he knew who Olivier Melnick was. He knew who Dov was, the former New York legislator. And so we're going to have him on soon. But this made some of them nervous. And then all of a sudden, we have a lot of Capitol Police that rightfully showed up to make sure nothing was going to happen. And nothing did. And they had their little say, and then they left. But they were passing out a brochure. And I went and got the brochure. And in fact, I'll show you, if you go to their website of this group, you can see the brochure. I saw it on here. Where'd it go? There it is. This is the brochure they were passing out. This brochure right here. View the brochure. Let's bring it up. We're going to go through this a little bit and talk with Annie and Dr. Woods about this and a few other things. This is even the full brochure. Where's the rest of it, boys? Because I got the full thing here, and this isn't all of it. Well, there's some lies, I think, in here. I want to show you this video. Watch this video, and then we're going to talk to Annie and Dr. Woods about it, including many other things going on. Watch this. So there you go. So they were holding these brochures, so I went and got one. And I've sent a screenshot of it over to Annie and over to Dr. Woods. They both join me now. Guys, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. Dr. Woods joins us by phone. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
All right. So the brochure says right there on the screen, I'll show it to you. I don't think they put the full thing on here. Christians stand against forced displacement and false doctrines. Now that's kind of ironic because, again, that's what I think you call psychological projection, because they're about to put out a bunch of false doctrines. Christians, really, so-called Christians, I'd like to know, what do you mean by Christian? Be careful, folks. Always ask, what do you mean by that? Christians stand against forced displacement and false doctrines. We, the undersigned, have dedicated ourselves to defending the Bible from false interpretations, most especially from those calling for the persecution, exploitation, an elimination of an entire people group. Now that's, again, ironic. Logan, can you put the picture up with a guy wearing the T-shirt from the Palestinian, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free? Nope. There was a guy, in the video, he's wearing a black shirt with white writing. There we go, right there. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. Now, who then is calling for the persecution, exploitation, and elimination of an entire race of people? As they say, that's what, I guess, some are doing to Israel. But to me, Dr. Woods, isn't that what he's saying? The elimination of a whole group of people by that saying, Dr. Woods?
Yeah, it's just a matter of figuring out what sea he's talking about, Mediterranean, and what river he's talking about, the Jordan. And so when he says from the river to the sea, the land of Palestine, mislabeled, by the way, it's the land of Israel, but the land of Palestine shall be free, he's talking about the eradication of the Hebrew population in between those two geographical markers. So there are, I don't know how many million Jews living there now, and he's saying, let's just get rid of them.
And yet this group is accusing, I guess, the Zionists, as you're about to find out, which there are two types of Zionists. There are Zionists, means those who believe the Jews have a historical right to the land. And then there are Christian Zionists, which are people who believe they have a historical right to the land and a biblical right to the land. And they go on to trash the Zionists. So, Andy, apparently the Zionists are for the persecution, exploitation, elimination of an entire people group. I don't know about that. And yet, their guys that gave me the brochures, the one wearing from the river to the sea, which is about, I think, getting rid of a whole group of people. The hypocrisy.
Yes. And here's another hypocrisy. I believe, if I can pronounce it correctly, the Christians are standing against false doctrination or doctrine and defending Bible. I actually quickly pulled this verse of Quran up. It's chapter 3, verse 52, and it says, "But when Jesus felt persistence in disbelievers, he said, 'Who are my helpers for the cause of Allah?' And the disbelievers said, 'We are the helpers of Allah. We believe in Allah. So bear witness that we are Muslims, as to Jesus was the messenger of Allah in Islam.'" How are they exactly making sure that biblical verses aren't being manipulated by false doctrine? From Quran itself, chapter 3, verse 52, calling Jesus the prophet of Islam, and many other chapters and verses where it says, "Do not say the three, do not believe in Trinity. Christians are unbelievers because they believe Jesus is Son of God." All of that plus this. So it's hypocrisy from the flyer to the T-shirts to the little, I think it's pieces of bread they're holding in their hand, correct?
Yeah.
So all of that. But what do I know? I'm just an Islamophobe.
Let's go back to that guy's T-shirt you're just showing. His T-shirt said free. What was that dude's name again? Mohammed Khalil or whatever his name was?
Mohammed Khalil, yes.
Yeah, remind our audience who that is.
Sorry, Mahmoud Khalid. He's the pro-Palestinian, anti-American, anti-Semite who was arrested while leading protests in, I want to say, Columbus University or Columbia University.
Columbia.
Columbia University. He was arrested, and I believe they're working toward actually deporting him. He's a terrorist, literally a terrorist, not just by mind and word. He chants all day long pro-Hamas. He's a big fan of Hamas, and he would like to see all Jews killed. And they want him freed back on the streets, and apparently give him his student visa back so he can go to school and poison more minds in America.
That lady's sign says, "Let the kids in Gaza eat." I think that's what it said, right?
Yes, but the kids
Let the kids in Gaza eat. Andy, is the Jewish state stopping the kids in Gaza from eating?
No. In fact, there's been a number of humanitarian efforts that the nation of Israel has done into Gaza, to prevent that very thing from happening. The only thing the nation of Israel is guilty of is going into Gaza and trying to root out terrorists in Gaza, which is, technically within the land of Israel, as far as I'm concerned. That was something that the Israelis gave to the inhabitants of Gaza back in 2004, and they had, of course, as we all know, one and only one election in Gaza since that time. They elected Hamas, and ever since that point in time, that Gaza territory, southwest portion on the Israeli map, has been used as a beachhead to launch terrorist activity, wave after wave, culminating in the events of October the 7th into the land of Israel. So what are the Israelis supposed to do? Just let a terrorist cell grow up in their midst? No, they're trying to root out Hamas from Gaza, and they've gone out of their way, to make sure that innocent life is not taken in that process, right down to, it's very common for the Israeli government to send out leaflets, to drop leaflets so innocent bystanders are given notice to get out of the way, because here we come for the terrorists. So all this stuff about Israel is starving the inhabitants of Gaza, mistreating the inhabitants of Gaza, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it's the Hamas within Gaza that's mistreating Israel.
I noticed one group on here is named the Palestine Solidarity Network in Germany. I would think the Germans might want to be careful when it comes to their trashing on the Jews. I think they have a history that they might want to be mindful of, but they a lot, not condemning all folks in Germany, but it seems like Germany just never could root out that anti-Semitism over there. A lot of these groups want to have the word justice. Justice is all over these different groups that are behind this. I'll go back to the brochure so everybody can see it. But look at this on the brochure. Justice. The word justice is everywhere. But of course, these groups mean social justice, which is very interesting, Annie, because that is one of the pillars of Islam, is social justice. Right, Annie?
Yes. However, it's a very important note. There's social justice for Muslims only. There's no social justice for non-Muslims. We need to put that in there. Which the picture you sent me of it, there's a part where it talks about diversity in Palestine. They have Muslims, they have Christians, they have Jews, and a few other. That's absolutely a lie. 100% a lie. You don't find you definitely don't find Jews in, I should say it's a lie because Palestine doesn't exist. But for sake of argument, we call it Palestine. There are no Jews in Palestine. There are no Christians in Palestine. They can't be. Why would they go there? So they can be killed? They travel, Hamas members travel from the other side of Gaza into Israel to kidnap Christian and Jews and take them over to rape them and torture them. Why would Christian and Jews voluntarily go into Palestine? Right there, that whole section is a lie. Well, the word Palestine in it is a lie. But the rest of the information is a lie.
In fact, I found page 2. Here's page 2. As followers of Jesus Christ, we have to dedicate ourselves to defending the Bible, really, from false interpretations. While they, of course, are doing that, most especially from those calling for the persecution, exploitation, elimination of the entire people group. We've already dealt with that, right? Then they go on, talk about Christian Zionism, as it is commonly known, is a heretical theology that encourages the violent uprooting of families and entire communities from the lands and properties on which they have lived, worked, and cultivated for generations. Now, I'm a Christian Zionist, but I have no desire to do that. But then again, if you're talking about uprooting terrorists, yeah, but here's the deal. How many Jews did the Israeli government kick out of Palestine, so-called Palestine, let's say the Gaza Strip? How many Jews did they kick out, Dr. Woods, and turn over the schools and the hospitals and the gardens and the nurseries, only to have it destroyed, and spending all the aid not on helping their people and feeding those Gazan children, but building concrete bunkers and tunnels, tons, millions and millions of dollars, maybe billions. Dr. Woods?
Well, it's just a matter of looking at a little bit of history and not ancient history. Just go back to 2004. It was the Israelis that voluntarily gave Gaza back to the inhabitants of Gaza. Now, that's not what a oppressive, genocidal power that Israel is being accused of. That's not how they behave. You know, this is supposed to behave, I should say. This piece that you sent me is so filled with political propaganda. They talk here about thousands of years of Palestinian history and culture. Well, there's no such thing. Mark Twain visited that part of the world in 1867, wrote about it 2 years later in his book Innocents Abroad, 1869, and he says there's nothing here but a barren expanse. There's no thriving civilization or population here at all. So this thousands of years of Palestinian history and culture that Israel supposedly took away when they entered the land May the 14th in the War of Independence, 1948, that whole thing is a myth. And then right there in the middle column, top of the page, it talks about how Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. Well, there's no such thing. The name Palestine is not even invented until Emperor Hadrian of Rome invented the term in the 2nd century, long after Jesus left planet Earth through his ascension. So the idea that Jesus was somehow a Palestinian makes no historical sense either. So that's how you can recognize that this flyer that you were exposed to there in D.C. Is nothing but political propaganda, because it just contains one historical mistake after another.
Mm-hmm. And yet, sadly, Dr. Woods, Annie, I'll let you respond to this, Annie, most Americans, and dare I say most Christians, I'm talking about real Christians, I'm not just cultural Christians, real Christians, could not read this propaganda piece and refute any of it. How sad is that, Annie?
That is very true. Before I respond to that, if I could add something to what Dr. Woods just said. Again, taking it back to the ideology. If you read the Quran, there are 0 times, none, where word Palestine or Palestine, Palestinian or Palestinians have been mentioned. However,
just stop right there for a second. 1 second. For those who want to know, why does she keep pronouncing the word differently? Because the Roman emperor that Hadrian, Dr. Woods referenced, said, let's call it Philistine, after the arch enemy of the Jews, the Philistines. Remember David and Goliath? And that became, under Yasser Arafat, Palestine. So if you're wondering why she keeps reciting the name differently, it's because different pronunciations, Palestine or Philistine. Right, Annie?
Correct. And inside Middle East, they, even here, Rashida Tlaib, when talking to her people, she says, I'm from Palestine. She doesn't say Palestine. The Palestine pronunciation was the westernized propaganda to avoid the knowledge for average people to know what they're referring to. But they themselves say Palestine.
Because the Philistinians, or those who are, Philistines, they don't exist anymore. Rashida Tlaib's DNA does not make her a Philistine. She's not.
Nope.
The Palestinians, so-called, do not have the same DNA. That group of the Philistines, they're gone. They don't exist anymore.
Yes, but their ideology does, which is hatred for Jews, the enemies of Jews.
So anyway, I interrupted you just so people would know why you were bouncing between those two pronunciations. But
yes.
Keep going, please.
0 time. Either the land known as Palestine or Palestine, or people known as Palestinians or Palestinian. But then when you look at the Quran, just the people, Jews, as name of Jews, Israelis, is repeated 40 times in the Quran. The land of Israel by itself as a land, as a nation, is mentioned more than 80 times in the Quran. So you tell me which one existed for how long? Within their own ideology, within their own fight, within their own cause of Allah. How come Allah never mentioned you, but made sure to mention Jews and Israelis 40 times within Quran? referring to them as, O Bani Israel, O sons of Israel, being Jews.
Then it says, we stand in fellowship with the Palestinian Christian community of the Holy Land, and we honor their witness when they warn us that the world's oldest, continuous Christian community is in danger of extinction. Dr. Woods?
Well, I mean, that's why I quoted Mark Twain. I mean, this thousands of years of Palestinian history and culture, you know, it's non-existent. It's a propaganda piece. I mean, basically, Yasser Arafat, who's well known, you know, with the was well known with the PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, basically went to the Soviets for schooling. And he figured out he could not beat the Jews militarily after getting shellacked 1948, 1967, 1973. And it was the Soviets that taught him the art of propaganda, basically that you have to convince the world that Israel is the oppressor and took someone else's land. And so that's where this term Palestine that he grabbed from Emperor Hadrian back in the 2nd century, you know, was brought back to life. And so if you repeat a lie long enough, people will believe it. You watch TV, cable, MSNBC, CNN, and they say this over and over again, that Israel is illegally occupying someone else's land, took the land away from the Palestinians, and the whole thing is false. There's no such thing as Palestinians, and if you go back to the San Remo Accords post-World War I,
yes,
it's very clear that Israel has a legal right to that territory. I mean, the best of the legal scholars have examined that and explored that. And so I find myself today as a political Zionist. I believe that the nation of Israel has a right legally to be where they are, and they have a biblical right. God gave that land to the nation of Israel. They're not occupying anything. You know, you can't occupy something you own. I mean, I'm sitting here in my house, in my living room, and I'm not occupying my living room because I own the house. I mean, that's basically what Israel is doing. She is living in a place where she biblically and legally belongs, and the other side doesn't like that. And so because of the propaganda efforts by Yasser Arafat, by the way, Yasser Arafat was not a Palestinian, he was Egyptian. So that shows you again that this whole thing is made up. He got it from the Soviets in terms of propaganda, and it's just a way to convince the world that Israel took someone else's land. And that's how you have to beat them. The Soviets taught Arafat, because you can't beat these people militarily, as 1948, 1967, and 1973 amply demonstrated.
And then, of course, you have look at this, folks. Dear Lord Rothschild, November 2nd, 1917, the Balfour Declaration. They started working on it in 1917. I think we had a further completion in 1926. The San Remos Conference. What year was that, Dr. Woods?
Oh, I want to say 1920 to 1922, right in there.
And this was the British government and a bunch of international community groups agreeing this is the home of the Jews, right?
Yeah, it was the post-World War I allies trying to fix the situation over there, and part of it was giving homeland to the Jewish people, and that's what the San Remo Accords was. That's what was agreed upon at a hotel in San Remo, Italy, by the World War I powers. Mm-hmm. And so when Israel came into the land in 1948, they weren't doing anything illegal. And even in 1947, the United Nations, again, partitioned a big section of that land. In fact, Israel is only today on a small fraction of what they were given, a section of land for the Jews. So, this is a bit of history that is ignored because it goes against the Yasser Arafat narrative that wants to convince the world that Israel is occupying. So every time you hear the word occupation or illegal occupation, I don't know what to say about it other than it's just a big fat lie, and people believe it because it's repeated ad nauseum.
Well, you go back to the brochure. We affirm the Palestinian people's inalienable right affirmed by theology, history, and international law.
Lie.
Lie, because we just mentioned two historical documents showing the international community said, starting back in the 1917, during that period of World War I, after that, no, I'm sorry, here is where we're going to establish a homeland for the Jews, historically.
Well, they're probably going off of recent rulings from the International Criminal Court and the ICC and the ICJ, all arms of the United Nations. But those are very recent rulings, and those are political rulings. They have nothing to do with the legal situation. You know, San Remo and 1947 partition were legal rulings, okay? Some court can say whatever it wants to today, but it's just expressing its own political perspective and is not dealing with the sources of law that give Israel a right to be in that land.
Comment on this, Annie? We move to another topic?
I keep doubling down on what Dr. Woods is saying. Yasser Arafat not being Palestinian, since nobody is. Also, we briefly touched on Mahmoud Khalil. I want to make sure your audience are aware. He's not Palestinian either. He's not. He was born in Syria to a supposedly Palestinian parents whose mom comes from Algeria, dad comes from Lebanon. Again, proof that they don't exist. They just don't exist. But again, repeated lie, big enough? Repeat a big lie over and over and becomes the truth. Bottom line is, I appreciate all the evidence that's out there, but bottom line, root of it is, there is no such a place as Palestine. There is no such a people as Palestinians. We touched on it on your show last time. Same thing with Pakistanis. Pakistan was a land that was made for Muslim Indians. So anybody who's like Pakistanis or Pakistanis, this and that, they're basically Indians. There is no such a race as Pakistanis. Same thing with Palestinians. And I'm pretty sure if it did, there are many of these races that don't exist. But apparently Jews themselves are worried about Palestinians more than they're worried about their whole heritage and history. And not to sidetrack the discussion, but 99.9% of us Iranians anywhere in the world are literally panicking over President Trump's entertaining the idea of renaming Persian Gulf, because it's our culture, it's our heritage, it's our history of 2,800 years. But how is it that some Jewish people are willing to hand it all over to a bunch of non-existing people? I don't know. That's beyond me.
What does he want to name the Persian Gulf, Annie?
He is making a visit this week to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia and Qatar have all requested for him to think about officially renaming Persian Gulf to Arab Gulf. And his latest statement is, I have to have a decision by then, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Now, my Substack actually tomorrow will be covering this. We're hoping, well, he should have never entertained it anyways. He should have said, I'm United States of America's president. It's not within my responsibility to rename the entire map of the world, but I think he's willing to entertain that, possibly, to rename Persian Gulf to Arab Gulf.
All right.
I mean, the very last pieces of Persia left that Muslim Arabs haven't taken away. Hopefully, President Trump's not going to be one of the names that is signing off on the last pieces to be taken.
I would think the prince from Iran, who's now exiled to Washington, D.C., would have at least reached out to him about this, right?
He did. The Prince Pahlavi has reached out to him 4 times since January 20th, from requesting a sit down to requesting a no negotiation to requesting a not making Oman the center of these negotiations, and to reach out to say, don't touch the name of that Gulf. But President Trump seemed to be very much ignoring the existence of Prince Pahlavi at the moment.
Let's switch to Texas. Look at this. Dr. Woods just giggled if you guys didn't hear that. Let's go to Annie's Substack. The Constitution versus Sharia. One must fall. why American freedom can't coexist with Islamic supremacy. Pick it up here. Tell me what you're talking about, because it fits with what's going on in Texas. And I got big news for you guys that I'm about to break right here related to Texas. I don't think you know this, Annie, but go ahead.
Sure. So this Substack came out today. I want to say I spent a good 6 to 8 weeks on it to gather the information. It is a very long piece, about 22 pages. But finally, I decided to break down what me, you, and everybody else talk about when we say there is no coexisting, Sharia goes against Constitution. The first 2 sections are, of course, available. I will say that you need to be a paid subscriber to read the rest of the remaining 5 pieces. But it's basically breaking it down with evidence from our own Constitution, different amendments and different articles, compared side by side to words of these 3 books I always have on my table: Quran, Hadith, and Reliance of the Traveler, which is the Sharia book. So I pretty much taking, of course, not the entire Constitution or the Quran, because that would have been probably a full book, but the top priority rights that we have here, freedoms we have here, that is completely against Sharia or vice versa. Making the point for comments, I actually got a comment on my page on Facebook today saying this will never happen in America. And I shook my head. I'm like, really? Have you heard of Epic City? Epic City 2.0? Have you heard of Michigan, Dearborn, Minnesota? Any of them? No. So the goal is to hopefully, as you said, people can look at this pamphlet and not see the propaganda because they don't have the knowledge to see the propaganda. I'm hoping with this one as the first one, and it will be followed with more, people can take a minute, read something, and actually have the knowledge to say, oh, wait, so this is why we're not going to end up friends as, United States of America. It's going to be either, the Islamic Republic of America or United States of America. It cannot be both.
Dr. Woods, you're in Texas. This whole 402-acre compound, your governor, who has been talking about it finally, but I don't believe anything he says. I think he's just full of tweets. Maybe actually the Attorney General, I think he's working on something. I trust him far more, and he's running against Rhino Cornyn of Texas for the U.S. Senate. We have someone that we sent in to investigate the mosque on that compound. And we're going to reveal to you on Wednesday night the individual we sent in, and we're going to reveal to you what that mosque is teaching on Wednesday night. If you had to guess, Annie, what do you think that mosque is teaching there in Plano?
Do I get multiple options or just one?
No, you can
sure
all.
They start their sermon by death to America, death to Israel. And then after that chant is over, they're probably going to moving on to Sharia is superior to all man-made laws, including the land you live in. If any of the laws goes against Allah's words, you will not follow it, and you will put Sharia above all.
So jihad and child brides, right?
Jihad, child brides, female genital mutilation, Islam, wherever you find them being non-believers. Anyone walks from Allah, becoming an ex-Muslim, shall be killed. You can have up to 4 wives, and those your right hand possesses. Rape the non-believer woman out there because you have conquered the land, therefore they are your right. All of that is Sharia. Again, that article actually breaks all of that down, word by word including all sort of jihad. Because remember, there are 4 different types of jihad. Jihad, blowing yourself up and screaming Allah Akbar, isn't the only form. And no, none of those 4 are the inner struggle to make it on time to the gym and keep your diet. That is not jihad. There are 4 different types of jihad that everybody's applying in America today. And by everybody, I mean every Sharia obeying Muslim.
And Dr. Woods, we will have this individual on the broadcast Wednesday night. We paid him to go there. We covered his expenses to go there. He spent several days taking a lot of pictures, studying their library, their books, doing lots of interviews. And it's exactly what we thought. There's more than enough here for your governor, your impotent governor, to do something. Do the people of Texas like your governor, or do they realize that he's not worth a pitcher of warm spit like I do?
Well, I don't detect any, strong hostile feelings, towards him. I mean, I don't know how much people are following every little thing that he does, kind of like you've been doing, but I just don't see a lot of hostility towards the man.
So in other words, most people in Texas aren't aware that the guy is basically impotent. He's good at tweeting and talking, but he's not a doer.
Well, the further you get up the political chain, when you start talking to political people, you get more of the perspective you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But your average Texan, I don't think really thinks in those terms.
Yeah, which is why Texas is in trouble. So I know they like to wave their flags, don't tread on me, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the average Texan, like the average person in Tennessee and everywhere else, is completely oblivious to what's really going on, the average person. Would you agree with that, Annie?
I would agree with that, yes. Again, a lot of anywhere in America, not just Texas, anywhere in America, most Americans, first of all, they don't see mosques as a threat. Hey, we have our churches. They have their mosques. They still don't understand a mosque isn't a place of worship at all. Again, if they would have studied the Quran, they would realize nowhere in the Quran does it say go to a mosque to do your prayer. It doesn't exist. It's not required. It's not required. The mosque is a very different concept, but Americans don't see it. Remember, we still have Americans who thinks interfaith dialogue was a brilliant idea and we should start respecting each other and coexist between Chrislam.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Woods, what do you think is going to happen in your state? I mean, you're the one that had right there your city hall in Sugar Land, Texas, outside of Houston. They just turned it over to the Muslims to get down on the ground and stick their rear ends up in the air. And yet I'm not sure they would rent to us. I don't know. Maybe they would. But we're not calling for Sharia, Islamic law, that's in direct violation of your state constitution and our U.S. Constitution. What do you think is going to happen to your state? Because I think personally, the barn door is open and the horse is out. And by the way, you do know that DOJ, thankfully, Trump's DOJ is supposedly going to investigate this group. Did you know that, Dr. Woods?
I did. Yeah, I did see something on that. But I'll say this much. I believe that Texas has been intentionally targeted.
Yes.
It's just a very simple mathematical reason. I mean, if you can flip Texas from red to, I don't know, turquoise or something like that, then you'll never, ever see a Republican president again because of the amount of votes that Texas has in the Electoral College, for presidential elections. So I don't think it's, and I also think they believe that if they can flip, red Texas, boy, what could they do to Massachusetts or, New Jersey or whatever. So I believe that people need to be in prayer for Texas. People need to pray for Texas all the way around because I think our state has been targeted for these very reasons.
I think so too. Let me go to this real quick, Annie. Heard another Substack. The suit doesn't erase the sword. West keeps falling for the oldest Islamic trick in the book. Isn't that the truth? Annie, tell me what that's about.
Sure. So I believe last Wednesday or Thursday, I always mispronounce his name, Macron, I think.
Yeah, Emmanuel Macron, yeah.
Invited the very new, elegant, suit-wearing jihadi leader of Syria to France, put a red carpet down for him, shook his hand, sat down, which I should say again, sorry to break it to everybody in America, he was following President Trump's footsteps of sending 2 Republican House members to Syria to make Syria great again. This happened a week before that. And now Wednesday, in 2 days, England is having him in England for a sit down. And I feel very exhausted and I feel like a broken record when I say putting a suit on a jihadi. And this guy is a jihadi. I'm not even making this up. Look him up. He's been part of Islamic jihad from day one. I think he got involved when he was 16 or 15 to this day. They just, trim the beard, brush the hair, put a suit on him, teach him how to shake somebody's hand. And now he's representing Syria and he's the good guy and we're going to help him make Syria great again. So that's why I saw the need to put out a Substack telling people, I mean, not that politicians are going to do anything about it, but people might start to learn just because he looks like CARE members doesn't mean he's a good guy.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Woods, Annie is Live Up to Freedom, liveuptofreedom.com, liveuptofreedom.com. Dr. Woods, before we go, give our audience a challenge, and just on a positive note, maybe an affirmation of some kind as a pastor, as an attorney, as a Texan, as an American, as a patriot.
Well, I mean, there's several directions I could go with that. I would encourage people to be involved, and not just national issues, but local issues. I mean, we had a guy running for mayor of this city, Sugar Land, and fortunately he was Muslim. Unfortunately, and fortunately he was just defeated in the runoff. Not the runoff, the primary leading to the runoff. Now we've got two people that we get a chance to vote for June 7th, and neither of them is a Muslim. The Muslim was eliminated, is the point I'm trying to make. So my point is people can make a huge difference just by paying attention to local politics. Don't just focus on national issues, focus on local issues. All politics is local. And if you're upset with the incursion of Islam into the state of Texas or any other state, defeat these people the way our Constitution allows them to be defeated at the ballot box. Don't let them win city council. Don't let them win the mayor slot. And don't let them win certainly the school board positions, because they're just going to bring their Islamic doctrine with them. And we can stop the whole thing just by being engaged and aware of, local issues and who's running, etc. So I guess as a word of exhortation, that's what I would encourage people to do.
AndyWoodsMinistries.org, AndyWoodsMinistries.org. And he's on each and every Saturday and Sunday. What time, Logan? Noon? Huh? Noon Central, Saturday and Sundays. Annie, when are you on the network?
Whenever you want me to be on the network.
You don't have a regular show? You don't have a regular show we're taping with you?
No, but last time we talked, as soon as I start the writing parts on your website, then we were going to talk and see what you have open for me to squeeze in my show.
Excellent. Logan, let's get on that. Guys, thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Brannon.
Thank you. President Trump at the White House today, talking about why he's letting in the white South African farmer. Thank you, Mr. President. Many of you know this is a topic I've talked about for years and years. It's also in my documentary, Sabotage, that came out in 2018. What is that, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 7 years ago? I want to play you a clip of President Trump in a little bit on why this is so important. By the way, where are the rallies, the protests when it comes to South Africa, against South Africa, for the murdering of white Christian farmers, many of them Christians? They haven't been that, have there? We don't see that, do we? Where's the media? This media outlet's been on it for years. One of the few. Listen to President Trump first. Here we go.
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something, but we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that violence and come here.
Yeah. And I again say, thank you, Mr. President, for doing that.
Because they're being
Let me show you. Let me bring that down. Let me just show you a little bit from my own documentary, as I said, from several years ago. This is my documentary, Sabotage. This is available. You can watch the whole 6 hours if you're a member of the Vault at worldviewtube.com/vault. The whole 6 hours, part of your membership. worldviewtube.com/vault. Look at why this is so important. Remember, this is from 2018, my documentary 2018, talking about a problem that was being ignored by so many for so long. President Trump, you just heard talk about it. Ronald Reagan talked about it, but very few do. So I say again, thank you, President Donald Trump, for what you're doing to let the white South African farmers, many of them Christians, come to America to escape persecution. They're literally being hunted. Folks, watch this. It's a short clip. I want you to see this. Watch this.
Neo-Calvinist Al Mohler, currently president of Southern Theological Seminary in Kentucky, has written, quote, "When it comes to human rights and human dignity, Nelson Mandela has to be put on the side of the heroes, not only of the 20th century, but of any recent century. He is, as an ironic view of history would remind us, one of those necessary men," end quote. Chris, do you believe Nelson Mandela was fighting for human rights and human dignity? Do you believe that he was a hero and a necessary man that God used?
No, I think Mandela has been propped up through media propaganda throughout, the last 20 years and more. Mandela was, by any measuring rod, he was a thug, he was a communist, he was in charge of the military arm of the ANC, which is the African National Congress in South Africa. The ANC, under Mandela's direction, used a process of dealing with their enemies called necklacing, where they would take a rubber tire, put it around somebody, douse it with gasoline, and set them on fire.
We share the outrage Americans have come to feel. Night after night, week after week, television has brought us reports of violence by South African security forces, bringing injury and death to peaceful demonstrators and innocent bystanders. More recently, we read of violent attacks by blacks against blacks. Then there is the calculated terror by elements of the African National Congress, the mining of roads, the bombings of public places, designed to bring about further repression, the imposition of martial law, and eventually creating the conditions for racial war. The most common method of terror is the so-called necklace. In this barbaric way of reprisal, a tire is filled with kerosene or gasoline, placed around the neck of an alleged collaborator, and ignited. The victim may be a black policeman, a teacher, a soldier, a civil servant. It makes no difference. The atrocity is designed to terrorize blacks into ending all racial cooperation and to polarize South Africa as prelude to a final climactic struggle for power.
Mandela ordered terrorist-type killings of civilians in South Africa. He pled guilty to 156 counts of public violence in court. Openly pled guilty to these things. Pled guilty to crimes for which he should have received the death penalty, it was said at the time. In fact, Amnesty International was approached about Mandela's case, and they refused to take his case because the evidence against him was so very clear. And it's important to remember that when he was ordering these terrorist activities in South Africa, he was specifically targeting civilians, including women and children, who were killed there in South Africa. Really, his agenda, however, was one of communism. And he used what the Marxists, the socialists, and the communists used throughout the 20th century, and that's the issue of racial agitation and hatred between blacks and whites. There's even a video out there of Mandela where he goes and he gives these speeches to the people that sound like everybody's going to get along, we're going to have the rainbow nation, everybody's going to be happy, and then he goes and he meets with his fellow blacks who are communists. And the thing to remember about the whites in South Africa, they have a history very much like our own. They've been in that country for more than 400 years. And these people are generally Christian. They're Dutch Protestant Christians. And even to this day, they have these churches, Protestant evangelical churches, much like our own. But most of the people who are being persecuted and killed down there are Christians. And many people don't realize the conflict is between Christianity and communism or Marxism.
So we should be quite dismayed that someone like Al Mohler, who keeps making it onto the platform of pastors' conferences, is praising a communist like Nelson Mandela, whose wife, Winnie, just recently died, was known for putting tires around people's necks and lighting them on fire and calling it a necklace.
She called for black South Africans that she considered too close to the apartheid regime to be murdered by necklacing, which is putting a tire soaked in petrol around their neck and setting it alight.
We could have killed them any day we wanted to. With our necklaces, we shall liberate this country.
In the 1980s, she also led a gang which imposed a reign of terror in parts of Soweto, called the Mandela United Football Club, which on her orders kidnapped, tortured and cut the throat of 14-year-old Stompie Muketsi, who Madikizela Mandela falsely accused of having had sex with a white priest. They also murdered other black youths, ANC members, whose bodies were not found until 24 years later. Mandela's bodyguard told South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Madikizela Mandela helped to torture Stompie Muketsi and then told him to kill the boy.
We made him lie on his back and I put garden shears through his neck. As soon as they finished slaughtering him, we got into the car, we went back to Mrs. Mandela's place to give a report back.
Madikizela Mandela was initially jailed for ordering that kidnapping, but on appeal was given just a fine.
And of course, this is Nelson Mandela, who's upheld as someone who's a social justice warrior, now being praised by neo-Calvinists.
And there you go. 2018. My 6.5-hour documentary, Sabotage. So again, I say thank you, President Donald Trump, for realizing the plight of many Christians, some who happen to be white and are farmers. But as you heard in my documentary from 2018, many blacks in South Africa, they've been murdered because they wouldn't go along with the communist. You won't find many media outlets talking about this. President Trump mentioned that today, didn't he? But as I said, we have. And we have for years, not just in one documentary. We've talked about it consistently. I hope you understand, folks, this is a perfect example of why we're needed here. So many issues we talk about years in advance. And many people are probably saying tonight, what's going on in South Africa? Why are they bringing these white farmers over here? And I can understand many of them not knowing, because your media, the mainstream corporate media, has ignored it, as President Trump said. This is why you need Worldview 2. To bring you context, reason, logic, history. To that end, of course, as I've said, we're starting our own history channel. Worldviewhistory.com. It'll be a website we get up and get going. You'll find it at Worldview Tube once we get it launched. That's what a lot of our week last week was about, filming lots and lots of stuff for history channels, for our history channel. And you guys help make it possible. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. This is history right here. Many Americans know nothing about nothing. Ronald Reagan knew about it. You heard him speak. Margaret Thatcher knew about it. She knew Nelson Mandela was not a hero, but a terrorist. Right before he was arrested, he was going to be involved in helping bomb a school with children. Jesse Jackson talked about it. But yet Nelson Mandela is made out to be a hero to most of America's children and college students. And of course, by the media. Of course they do. They share the same worldview. Communism. A hatred of Christians. A hatred of patriots. A hatred of entrepreneurs. I hope many of you will go to the website when we post this tomorrow. And I hope you'll grab the link to this particular segment. And I hope you'll put it out there all over social media and say, thank you, President Trump, for letting these white farmers, many of them Christians, come to America who are being persecuted for one reason, because they were Christians, or really two reasons, Christians and anti-communist. We're going to cover this topic again, I think, on Tuesday night, tomorrow night. We're going to cover this again. We're just scratching the surface. I'm going to bring you some more videos and show you what's been going on and why this is so important, what President Trump is doing. But in the meantime, I hope this will cause you to make a note tomorrow to go to worldviewtube.com, grab the URL to this segment, and send it all over social media. Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, Truth Plus, wherever. Because Americans don't know this story. Most don't. Most don't. And then I hope you'll say, yep, this is why we trust Worldview Tube. And then I hope you'll go to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution. I hope some of you will go to worldviewtube.com/vault and join our vault and watch the whole 6 hours of Siege. Watch the whole 8.5 hours of Sabotage. Let's put in Nelson Mandela into our search engine. There's so much that we need to educate our fellow Americans on, and our children and our grandchildren. Do you know your grandchildren, many of you, your grandchildren are being told Nelson Mandela is a hero. I already told you, we got Al Mohler, the neo-Calvinist, who's big buddies with John MacArthur, has praised Nelson Mandela for years, among others. A man that was a known terrorist. Are these people that clueless? I don't think they are. I think they know exactly what they're doing and who they're promoting. I think they're wolves in sheep's clothing. That's why I wrote the book in 2018, Marxianity. So we got a problem in the church in America, people teaching Nelson Mandela as a hero. We got a problem in our educational system where your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren are being told that a communist terrorist like Nelson Mandela was a hero. They wanted to make all this about race. It wasn't about race, folks. Not all of it. Apartheid, bad. But a lot of this, folks, was just simply about communism. And they were black terrorist communists killing the black teacher, taxi driver, worker who did not want to go along. You heard Ronald Reagan talk about it. So it really wasn't about race a lot of the time. It was about a battle between communism and the free market system in Christianity. They just used race, many of them, to gain followers. Just like goes on here in America. Were there some people there in South Africa that are racist? Yeah, just like in America. But communists love to exploit the race issue. And there's really only one race, the human race. The Bible says we're of one blood. There are many people groups, but really only one race. So you need a network like this. Because if we don't inform our kids and grandkids about the truth of Nelson Mandela and others like him, America, folks, after Donald Trump, they will get right back on the path toward the Mandela method. And that's what Obama was on. That's what Biden was on. The Mandela method for reparations, destroying the Christians, the free market system, and using race, reparations, taxation to do it. We got a little reprieve here, but it's a very little one. So tomorrow, worldviewtube.com, grab the URL, send it everywhere. Most people will be shocked by what they see that you just saw. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brannon Howse, and I want to tell you about Numi. This is a swish. You just take 2 capfuls, swish it around your mouth for 3 to 4 minutes, and you're absorbing, according to the studies, glutathione. Now, you don't need to take my word for it. There are over 162,000 studies on PubMed on the power of glutathione. It is a powerful molecule that studies show detoxes our cells. Some studies even show that, well, glutathione might remove mercury from our brains, help to prevent things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Now, look, I'm not making claims. I'm just telling you what the research is showing about the powerful molecule glutathione. Numi is the product that contains glutathione. Melissa and I swish with this twice a day. We urge you to go to Numi.com/Howse1. That's Numi, Neumi.com/HOWSE and the numeral 1. Begin finding out about the power of glutathione while also supporting this broadcast network. Thank you.
All right, guys, go right here, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. I don't want you to miss out on our national conference. This will be our 22nd annual national conference, 22nd. Look at this lineup, folks. Gordon Chang, Alex Newman, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell, Rasmussen. We're in Collierville, Tennessee. That's a suburb here in the Mid-South outside of Memphis. Safe, middle class, safe neighborhood. This is a nice area. The hotels we put up for you are in Collierville and Germantown. I was talking to U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville last week off air. Told him where we're from. He's like, oh, I love golfing up there in Collierville and Germantown. Folks, the point I'm making is, why would this U.S. Senator say I love golfing up there in Collierville and Germantown if it was a war zone? It's not. Don't believe all the bad press about Memphis. And we're not in Memphis. We're outside of Memphis. Yeah, fly into the Memphis airport. So it's a medium-sized airport. It's easy to get in and out of. Come on, get a rental car and come on over. Or drive in. Just stay in the hotels. We tell you. If you don't go stay over in Orange Mound, you'll be fine. Right, Caleb? Yeah. Don't go stay in Fraser. Don't stay in Fraser and don't go sightseeing in Fraser and Orange Mound and then complain. You know, there's certain parts of Chicago you don't go in, or St. Louis, or Kansas City. Right? Same thing here. So don't worry. I mean, I could move and go somewhere else, but I don't. Why? Why would I? I love the Mid-South. I live in a nice, safe community. I don't live in Memphis. And when I do go to Memphis, by the way, I've never had a problem in 21 years of living here. I don't go to Fraser. I don't go where the gangbangers live. I don't go where the drug lords live. And most people come here, they sightsee, they go to Graceland, they go to the Peabody, they have no problem because they stay in the right places, just like any town you go to. So maybe I'm belaboring the point, but we would run into people in D.C. and they'd ask where we're from. We'd tell them, like, whoa, they'd freak out. Like, are you kidding me? So don't buy the bad press. We got all the hotels you need to stay in right there. Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott in Collierville, Courtyard by Marriott, Memphis, Collierville, Hampton Inn, Collierville. It's going to be awesome. We only have 350 seats, and we lowered the price to $99. We were able to save some money by not being in the big hotel convention center or passing the savings on to you. So get registered. It's going to be awesome. The Thursday night banquet, that's on here. There it is. The food at this place is amazing. One of Melissa and I's favorite restaurants. They have a beautiful ballroom, as you can see, and you're going to love it. You're going to love it. And we're going to have Hadia speak. Remember the former Muslim Hadia? She's going to be speaking. My grand piano player and I, and some strings. We're adding some strings this year. But I'll do a few numbers, and then we'll hear from Hadia, former Muslim, who's an expert on Islam and worked in the government and the national security arena. She'll be there speaking. It's Thursday night, folks. This is optional, but you need to go ahead and get registered. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Oh, by the way, when you're there, pick up some of our free business cards. We've now sent out, how many of these, Caleb? About 15,000? Yeah, at least 15,000. He said at least 15,000. They're free. Pack of 20. Pass them out to your family and friends. Let them know about Worldview Tube, all right? All of that is at worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Joining me now is Leo Holman. Hello, Leo.
Hello, Brannon.
How you doing?
I'm good. Welcome back.
Man, it's good to be back. We had a great time, though. Got a lot done. What did you make of what you saw? What little bit you saw?
Excellent coverage. Yeah, it's good to see Worldview Tube getting a presence in the nation's capital.
Amen. I agree with that. I want to go to a couple Substacks real quick, catch up since you were last with us. Look at this headline by Leo at leoholman.com. Massive new study shows how we're killing our kids with government and medical establishment cheering for more. One of many things I want to touch on. The Pope, lots of things. Comment on this one real quick at leoholman.com.
Yeah, this was a study put out by Slay News, Brannon, a couple of weeks ago, and it was about the vaccines and how the vast, overwhelming majority of children who die of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, had had a vaccine within 5 or 6 days of their death. And the biggest component of that was children who'd had a vaccine 24 hours before they ended up dead in their beds. Second most, was 48 hours. And for every day you went out, it's gradually decreased. So this was clear evidence, Brannon, that sudden infant death syndrome is no mystery like the media tries to tell us. It is absolutely 100% caused by vaccines and not just COVID shots. This has been going on for decades. They've been hiding the truth, and it's good to see Slay News and others, myself included, coming out finally with the truth.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, let's go to another topic, Leo, and that would be the new Pope. Here we go. Article by Leo. Meet the new Pope, same as the old Pope? Will we get fooled again? And what's really going on that they don't want us to talk about or know about? What's going on with him?
Yeah, it's playing out exactly like I warned a couple of days after Pope Francis died. I suspected, and my gut instinct turned out to be correct, that the new Pope would be presented to us by the mainstream media and the Catholic media, including even, I think, some LifeSite News type publications, which I expected better of, he's being presented as a moderate or at least less liberal than Francis. Just about everything I've read in the conservative Catholic media presents him that way. Yeah, he could have been better. You know, we could have had a Cardinal Sarah or a Cardinal Burke out of, if we wanted an American Pope, and a good one, they could have chosen Cardinal Raymond Burke, who is an arch conservative. But they chose Mr. Prevost out of Chicago, Barack Obama's stomping grounds. And as we know, Obama was very involved with the Catholic Church outreach and organizational network during his early years. That's where he learned, Brannon, most of his community organizing skills. So I wouldn't be surprised if he knows this cardinal very well. He probably would have been a bishop or a priest back at that point. But this cardinal was appointed by Francis, and he was put in charge of vetting the bishops. So how in the world could we expect a cardinal named to the position by Francis and put in charge by Francis with vetting all of the new bishops throughout the world for the Catholic Church? How could we think that he might be a conservative? He may speak a little bit more conservative, as I suspected. He may be more likable than Francis, but we should not view this Pope as in any way a swing back to the conservative Catholic Church of yesteryear.
Well, there is video out tonight showing him supposedly passing by an LGBTQ flag. And again, people are making reference to this. Here we go, watch. I don't even know if he saw it, for Pete's sake.
No, he didn't even see it.
But people are using that to say, oh, look how conservative he is.
Yes.
Right,
and, and he may be presenting himself that way. But I think we need to be aware of the deception going on here. For 13 years or however long Francis was in there, we have had a radical leftist, pro-LGBTQ, woke Pope. And so, yes. And so it's only natural that they would want the new Pope, coming on the heels of an ultra leftist Marxist Pope, to be seen as more conservative. But I still don't think we should buy into that because of the mere fact of his past and his history of being appointed and promoted by the arch liberal radical Marxist Francis. How could we see a truly conservative cardinal being given such responsibility as to vet all of the new bishops by Francis, a arch liberal Marxist Pope? So I'm just urging people to maybe not completely write him off if you're Catholic, but certainly watch this Pope very carefully because he's going to be more deceptive than the previous one. At least with Francis, we knew what we were getting. A Jesuit Marxist, first Jesuit, probably first Marxist Pope in Catholic history. With Pope Leo XIV, it's going to be much less clear. It's going to be more opaque, but that means it could be more deceptive because he could gain the trust of people and lead them down the wrong path because they think he's a conservative. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to, well, let me ask you this. Some are saying they picked an American Pope so he can go up against Donald Trump. An American Pope going against American president. What do you think?
I think some people want to make everything about Donald Trump. I really don't think that was a main factor here.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is 69. He's going to be around long after Donald Trump, so I don't think they picked him just for that.
Right.
All right, let's go to the executive order. You did an interview with John Whitehead. Now, I want to tell everybody, John Whitehead has been right about a lot of stuff. John Whitehead is also a libertarian, okay? So that comes into view. Now, I read this executive order on the air. There's some good things in it, and then there's some vague things in it. And I think if you're going to have elected officials blocking ICE from arresting terrorist members and gang members and sex traffickers and rapists, then those people should be prosecuted, and that executive order calls for that. But you have some other concerns about it. What are those? Leo?
I do, Brannon. I really do. It talks about militarizing the police, joining the U.S. military with local law enforcement, providing them with non-lethal assets, intelligence, surveillance methods, more training from not just the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, which has been going on for decades and is already fraught with militarized tactics, but now they want to use the military to train law enforcement. I don't see any good purpose in that. They talk about, giving police immunity from litigation in this executive order, protecting them, from any sort of legal repercussions for bad behavior. This is a recipe for disaster. I mean, you could end up with SWAT raids on people's homes. It ends up being a mistake, but you can't sue them now because they've got legal immunity. This is a definite major upgrade to the policing power of the United States by combining Homeland Security and now the military with state and local law enforcement. It talks about increasing data, the national crime databases, increasing the amount of information they gather on us. All sorts of bad things in this executive order. I really don't see anything good about it.
All right. What else are you tracking, Leo?
We've got positive news today on the China-U.S. trade war. We're going to have a 90-day pause, which is a good thing because with no deal really on the table being negotiated in any late stages, we need more time. And this will give a 90-day cooling off period, time for the two sides to sit down and hash out a more permanent trade deal. Now, I will say that a lot of the national media was hailing this as a breakthrough trade deal, breakthrough trade agreement. It is not. It is only a 90-day cooling off period, a temporary reprieve. But that is good news because now they will have more time to actually negotiate a permanent deal, which will hopefully be beneficial to the United States consumer.
Leo Holman
and worker. United States consumer and worker.
worker. LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. Leo and I and Dr. Woods are talking about maybe doing a Worldview radio rally, Worldview Tube TV radio rally in Des Moines, Iowa this October, late October, and maybe one in, say, Mitchell, South Dakota area. What do you think, Leo? Think we should do that?
I think that would be a great opportunity. I've not been in South Dakota, Brannon, since I was there with Phil Haney in 2018. We spoke to a state Senate subcommittee on refugee resettlement. They did not listen to us. They continue to flood refugees into that state and put them to work in the meatpacking, mostly in the meatpacking industry. And now they've got a lot of problems there. So related to that they were warned. We hear a lot about Texas and the Epic City development. It's going on, in many states around the country due to refugees being brought here by our own government from nations that hate us, like Afghanistan and Sudan, Iraq, Syria, the whole gamut. Somalia.
We'll keep it posted, folks, if we get that confirmed and on the books, but we're talking about it. LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Brannon.
Joining me now are the Bad News Bears, Michael Weiner and Wes Peters. President Trump, of course, is doing so much to help America, and the tariff deals are going great, and gold is dropping. I guess gold just went on sale today, and maybe none too soon, because check out this headline right here from the Daily Mail. Major bank with 1,100 branches sparks alarm as it plans to shutter 38 locations in weeks. Gentlemen, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. Hi, guys.
How are you doing, Brannon?
I'm great. All right, let's pick this up, Wes. What is going on here, Wes?
Well, good old TD Bank managed to get themselves in some hot water from 2019 to 2023. They allowed about $670 million of money to be laundered through their accounts.
Whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Who was doing it?
Yeah, actually, there were even some people on the inside that were involved in this money laundering. Actually, TD Ameritrade ended up paying it's the seventh largest bank, and they ended up paying out the largest fine in history. The criminal fine to the Department of Justice was $1.8 billion, and then they had a $1.3 billion civil penalty as well. With regulation, regulation is good, obviously, especially in the banking industry. And one of the things that people are worried about here in the future is these things that are in place, these regulations and policies that are in place to keep these banks in check. If we, cut back on these, we're going to have more and more issues like this.
Well, look at this. Here's the bank closures just for the first quarter of 2025. Flagstar, TD Bank, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Fulton Bank, PNC, Chase, Huntington, Citizens Bank, First Mid Bank. What are your thoughts about this, Michael?
Well, there's a lot more to the story. First of all, there's a $500 million that went out on fentanyl money laundering. The biggest involvement that this bank had, and by the way, the bank is actually a subsidiary of Toronto Dominion Bank. They're tied into the Royal Bank of Canada and the Bank of Montreal. They're a Canadian bank. They're a huge DEI bank. Actually, they have a whole still section up there because they're not a U.S.-owned bank. But what's really interesting is some of the biggest amounts of money laundering was involving fentanyl and money going to China. China's and their connections with China is where a lot of their money was going to. So what's really disturbing about all of it is it happened. And these banks, and when people, we always say the banks are not your friends. And this is a pure example of it. It makes Scarface look like peanuts. These guys were literally money laundering money for people that were killing Americans.
Did they not know this? Okay. We had all this shadow banning, right? We're going to, or a cancel culture, debanking. All these conservatives during the Biden regime had their accounts canceled because the bank looked them up and figured out they're too patriotic, they're too Christian, they're too interested in good, clean elections. We don't want you. You're telling me these banks didn't know the criminals they were dealing with, Wes Peters?
No, absolutely they knew. And again, going back to what we've been saying for a long time, Brannon, people need to get some of their money outside of the traditional banks.
Wait a minute. Birds of a feather flock together. So banksters and crooks and drug dealers and sex traffickers and money laundering, I guess, would you be shocked? Right?
No.
Yeah, who else is involved with this bank? BlackRock owns 4.7% of this bank. They knew it. These people knew that this money was going to China because the government and the Justice Department had tracked it down, going all the way. This started under the Trump administration when they started getting this information. And at the end of the day, it slowed down totally under the Biden administration. I wonder why. But what we talk about with these banks and with people is this is not just a capsulized just for this bank. And when we talk about gold being on sale, I got big news for every time it takes a dip of 100, it goes up $1.50. So if you're going to buy it, try to take advantage of these opportunities. But at this point in time, as Wes was saying, these banks are not your friends. They are looking for every way possible to legitimately make money any way they can. And by the way, they still have not indicted anybody yet. All these people have not been indicted yet because the Biden regime just sat on their hands. They haven't gone to jail.
And I'm not accusing any particular bank of anything. I'm just responding to the general opinion that I have that most of these banks are probably not honest people. I'm not talking about the individual bankers that you deal with when you go into your lobby. I have a hard time believing that the upper elite of these banks don't know they're being dishonest, that they don't know they're holding a bunch of junk derivatives, that if they used traditional accounting, they know their bank would be upside down and insolvent, okay? And then you tell me that they don't know that some of these groups that they're letting do business with their bank are not involved in ill-gotten gains and involved in illegal activity. I would have a hard time believing at the higher levels they don't know this, but they turn a blind eye. I'm not accusing any particular bank because I don't have any proof. I'm just saying my gut tells me you have to know. Because how is it, again, they can call up conservatives and tell you, come get your money, we don't want you here. We're debanking you. Wait a minute, you knew? You know? But you cannot somehow track these groups that are moving massive amounts of money reportedly through your bank, Wes? And then when your clients want to get money out of the bank to buy gold, the same bank says no. Or what do you want it for? So how is it they put their thumb into the chest of the conservatives and the patriots, but these groups that are supposedly accused of these things can get away with all this? And I think it's because, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, that my gut tells me the money is so big and some of the ideology of some of the leadership of this bank is not for the conservative, the Christian, the patriot, and they're not for America. What say you, Wes?
I totally agree with you 100%, Brannon. It's the good old boy system, the good old boy and gal system. And if you don't fit their mold of what you should be doing and your beliefs don't fall in line with them, like you mentioned, we've seen it firsthand. Those people get punished, and they turn a blind eye to the corrupt criminals. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to get worse. And the troubled bank list, we had talked about the troubled bank list before. What they make a report of how many banks are in trouble. And they stopped giving out all of that information. They used to show the numbers, and they no longer show the numbers. There were, 52 banks. The fourth quarter of last year, there were 52 banks on the troubled bank list. And they used to show the numbers, the assets they have, their liabilities. And they stopped doing that because they were worried that people, based on the numbers, would be able to figure out which banks these were. So they no longer give those numbers. And what they're afraid to death of, what they're scared to death of is a run on the banks. That if people get a sense that their bank is in trouble, whether it's true or not, especially with social media and the way that things spread nowadays on these different platforms, a bank, everyone's running to that bank to get their money out, run on the banks, and that's when these people are going to be froze out. So again, with technology, with AI, I think that this type of thing is only going to get worse.
Take a look at this headline. Gold replaces stocks as best long-term U.S. investment after real estate. Gallup poll. Shocker.
What's interesting also, Brannon, is next year, Trump got the new lady who works at the Federal Reserve in charge of the banks. He put her in when our dear friend did not. The Federal Reserve Board Chairman Powell did not want her. He got her in. So she oversees and looks at the banks right now. But I think when things are going to really get hot at the banks is when Trump appoints his new Federal Reserve Board Chairman. They're not going to put up with the good old boy games that have gone on in the banks. I think a lot of things are going to be disclosed next year, especially with derivatives, bank games, all this type of stuff that has gone on is going to get very, very, very interesting. And that's why we always tell people, start your own bank. Your bank of gold, you have liquidity within days to get your money. You have privacy, and you also have, it's a strange feeling when you have gold and you have silver and gold, Brannon. It's empowering. It really is empowering because you feel you have something that you don't have to run to somebody else to get permission to get your money. Mm-hmm. It's literally empowering.
Look at this headline. Gold has a path to 4,000 as U.S. credibility crumbles. So are we still on that path, Michael?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We've got Basel coming up in July starting.
What is that? What is that? What is that?
Basel III. Wes, why don't you elaborate on Basel III? Okay, then it help.
Well, we got it muted. Hold on. Start over, Michael, or Wes, we had you muted.
Yeah, Basel III, that's a meeting in July with all the BRICS nations again, continuing their alliance and continuing their de-dollarization and their platform to go around the U.S. dollar. And this is something that's been taking place. It's not something that's going to happen. It's currently going on. There's 10 Southeast Asia countries that are all on board with dumping the U.S. dollar as well. So there are a lot of big things going on that, again, the race towards a digital currency, so there's still time. And looking at where gold is right now, you mentioned, Brandon, gold's on sale. It's almost $300 off of its previous high. And smart investors buy on the dips, dollar cost average, because, again, what's going on globally and geopolitically around the world with trade tariffs, with de-dollarization, it's a perfect storm. And we're going through a period of time that we've never experienced before. And your financial advisor hasn't been through anything that's coming on the horizon, a whole new currency, whole new payment system. And again, if you don't want to be exposed on the government's radar with all of your wealth, and they know right down to the last dime of what you have, including your real estate, get some of your money in physical gold and silver. When you buy it, we don't have to tell it. We don't need to know anything about you. We don't have to report to anybody. Better yet, you have that off the grid, so to speak, on the sidelines, and you can convert it to whatever currency we're dealing in at the time. When you need money, we'll cut you a check based off of whatever currency we're dealing in. So there's still time to take action to privatize some of your wealth. And that's what we're here for. Both Michael and I, we have a whole library of free information, a lot of good third-party information, and do your homework and then jot down all your questions, and let's have a no pressure, no obligation conversation and get all your questions and concerns addressed.
Yeah, by the way, I've been working with this group, 16, 17 years. And one reason why I work with them is because their margins are very fair. They've never missed a buyback. This company is over 40 years old, right, Michael?
44.
44 years old. And they don't pressure. And I specifically picked Michael and Wes to work with our people 16, 17 years ago. And I said, only these two guys. Because I know that they will treat my viewers with respect, and I don't want any strong arming.
Right.
My people say no, then you walk away. And that's the way they do it. They're interested in education, not pressure, okay? So if you want to find out about precious metals, gold bullion, numismatic, 1933 and older, if you want to find out putting gold in your IRA, you can go here, worldviewgold.com. On the top there, more info, click it. Bring you to the bottom, fill out the form, and get it. Or text Wes, 602-558-8585, and say, I want the packet, free, no obligation packet. Here's my name and address, 602-558-8585. So there you go. So a bank has said that they're going to be closing 1,100 branches. Yeah, and people are getting alarmed. But wait till the day some of these banks are closing their branches and people are like, well, if I'd only known. Or if I'd finally just followed the advice, the opinion of some of these guys like Brannon, and because I don't give financial advice, I give financial opinion, then I wouldn't be here. Look, folks, we've tried telling you this was coming. We were telling you this was coming when it was at $1,000 an ounce, $1,200 an ounce, and now we're at, what are we at, guys? 3,200 and something an ounce today?
32.
32.38, 32.38.50.
And people waited, and they waited, and they waited, and now they want to buy at 3,200. Well, wait till it goes to 6,000, and you'll be wishing you bought it at 3,200. That's my opinion, Michael.
Well, one other thing we need to mention, the reason why a lot of these banks are closing, Trump is not going to do the digital dollar. He's not doing digital. He's already said no, but the banks are doing pushing this to do digital banking. They don't want to give you a checkbook. They don't want you to be able to come into the bank. They want you to do everything on computer so they can track you, share your information, and literally track all of your habits and share it to who God knows who. Look at this TD Bank. They're out of Canada. They're involved with BlackRock. They're involved with China. I mean, literally heavily involved with China. All of these people, this the seventh largest bank in America, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people doing business with a bank that probably most of them don't know about all these ties that this bank has. It's amazing. And that's why they want to sit back some of these other banks and eliminate your ability to walk in the bank, fill out a little piece of paper, do your business, and leave. They don't want you to do that. They want you to do it where they can track it.
All right, there you go. Worldviewgold.com. Worldviewgold.com. What's that, Wes?
I said, that's it, folks.
That's it. We're out.
We're done.
Gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey,
Good
thanks,
night.
Brandon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, Dolly.
All right, folks, that's our broadcast tonight. Hey, let me ask you, do you appreciate us? Do you appreciate? I know a lot of you do, and I want to thank all of you that do support us. Are you thankful we went to Washington last week, to Northern Virginia? Are you excited about this History Channel we're going to start? Are you excited about the History Channel? Hey, you know you got a birthday coming up Friday? I think we might have to have a little birthday celebration this coming Friday. What do you think, sweetheart? Should we do that? You got another haircut. I know I gave you a haircut. Mom asked for a Mother's Day gift. She said, I only have one Mother's Day gift. Help me work in the yard and give Dolly a haircut so she quits shedding all over my house. So I did. Are you glad we went? Are you excited about the idea of the History Channel? Are you excited about all the programs we push out every day right here, free of charge at worldviewtube.com? Please go right now, worldviewfoundation.com, and make a contribution of any size. You'll find our mailing address there too, worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you to all of you that do support us. And if you cannot support us, don't you fret about it. You can still support us with prayer. You can still support us with promotion. Get those business cards at worldviewstore.com, pass them out. But some of you are single moms, and you can't afford to do it. Some of you are seniors on a fixed income. Things are a little tight. Some of you have very serious medical issues, and you have a lot of medical expenses. Some of you are raising your grandkids. Something's happening, you're raising grandkids. Some of you are very busy helping other family members that have serious financial problems. Your budgets are tapped. You can't support us financially. Don't you worry about it. That's why we put it out for free. We don't want people hindered from getting the truth and being encouraged and educated and informed. But if you can support us financially and you're not, would you please do so? I think our 35-year track record shows that we're an organization that's been responsible, consistent. It's going to stay the course. An older guy started working with us a few years ago. And I asked why, and he said, because after all of the years you've been doing this, I don't think I have to worry about you changing courses now. That's so true. So folks, we have a track record, I think, that speaks for itself. So if you are not supporting us and you can afford to do so, please. And by the way, anyone says, well, my $10 a month won't matter. No, it will matter. Many of our regular donors are giving $10, $20, $50 a month. That all adds up. So never think that your $10 a month doesn't count. It does when added to the gifts of others, okay? And if you do make a contribution, around the first week of February 2026, we'll send you a receipt for your taxes with our EIN number and everything, okay? Worldviewfoundation.com. Lord willing, I'll be back this Sunday night, getting back to our study in the book of Revelation. I'll pick it up with Revelation chapter 15, verse 1. We'll be back at it. And again, thank you to all of you that prayed for us for our trip, for protection, providential meetings, good weather, good health. It was a great trip. But we're glad to be back, get on our regular schedule. But we're going to go out more. We're going to take advantage of the 3+ years we still have of Donald Trump, where I think we have a little more freedom to travel. And he's cleaning up the country, getting the bad folks out. So we're going to take advantage of that right now. while we have that window. So we're going to be bringing you a lot as we go to a lot of historical sites and film to get this Worldview History channel up and running for you guys all to watch free. Okay? Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Hey, I told you, we took our Gatatana, we took our Bella Grace, we took our Numi. Go there right now, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. They're there. Don't forget about your satellite phone. We took our satellite phone with us to Washington, D.C. because something happened there. I wanted to have my satellite phone. You know what else we took? We took this. We took our emergency medical kit with our ivermectin, our amoxicillin, our antibiotics. Got sick, need an antibiotic, we're good to go. We travel with this stuff. No doubt about it. We travel with this stuff. Like I said, traveled with my satellite phone. All this stuff. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll also find the Bella Trim, all of it. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. May God save America. Take care.
You are watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon Howse.
Looking for a trusted source to understand today's world through a Christian worldview? Worldview Tube is built on the 35 years of Worldview books, columns, research, and high-profile interviews of Brannon Howse. Want to know more about Worldview Tube, its founder, history, team, and mission? Visit worldviewtube.com/about. That's worldviewtube.com/about. Worldview Tube is your source for understanding the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
True beauty isn't applied. It's nourished from within. Bella Grace Elixir, a luxurious, scientifically crafted blend designed to restore radiance, vitality, and strength at a cellular level. At the heart of Bella Grace Elixir lies cat's claw, a powerful herb from the Amazon known for its ability to control inflammation and protect collagen. With Verisol collagen peptides, it goes beyond the surface, stimulating your body's natural collagen production to reduce fine lines, improve skin elasticity, and promote real, visible change. Bella Grace Elixir doesn't stop at collagen. It includes astaxanthin, one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, astaxanthin protects your skin from harmful UV rays and environmental stress, while locking in hydration and promoting a radiant, youthful glow. Experience the power of nature with Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Discover the science behind Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Read powerful testimonials from doctors and real customers who've experienced life-changing results, and explore other wellness products from Bella Grace. Bella Grace Elixir